Well, friends, Donald Trump's world is crumbling, and one of Trump's own just flipped on him. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, did you see the new reporting about how one of Donald Trump's own, an insider, just flipped against him? So Donald Trump's former IT director at Mar-a-Lago, a guy named Yuscil Taveras, had been represented by a MAGA lawyer, a lawyer who was being paid with Trump PAC funds. And the minute Taveras wiggled out from under that representation and got himself an independent lawyer, somebody who was actually looking out for his interests, Taveras flipped on Trump and company. Now, I want to start with the recent reporting, and then I want to try to translate anything that may need to be translated from, lawyer speak to English. But let's start with the new reporting. This from the Daily Beast. Headline: Jack Smith reveals Trump employee flipped after ditching MAGA lawyer. And that article begins, a former maintenance worker at Mar-a-Lago. Now mind you, you're going to hear Mr. Taveras referred to in a number of ways, by his name, or as a former maintenance worker, or as the director of IT, a position to which Donald Trump promoted him. You'll also hear him referred to as Trump employee number 4. That's the way he's referred to in the indictment. A former maintenance worker at Mar-a-Lago, now being eyed as a key witness to an attempt to conceal evidence from the government, retracted his grand jury testimony after switching lawyers, prosecutors and Special Counsel Jack Smith's office said in a Tuesday filing. The unidentified staffer, named only as Trump employee 4 in the filing as well as in the indictment, but suspected to be Yuscil Taveras, who oversaw the club's security camera system, initially told a grand jury that he hadn't been privy to any attempt to delete security footage. But after dumping his lawyer, Stanley Woodward, for another attorney offered up by the Federal Public Defender Service in Washington, D.C., Taveras quickly reversed course. Quote, immediately after receiving new counsel, Smith's office said in the filing, Taveras retracted his prior testimony and provided information that implicated Trump and his 2 alleged co-conspirators in efforts to delete security camera footage. Okay, friends, let's break this down. Let's make it simple. You have this MAGA lawyer, Stanley Woodward, who's being paid with Trump PAC money, representing 2 people. He's representing defendant Walt Nauta, Donald Trump's self-described body man, and he's also representing Mr. Taveras. Mr. Taveras is referred to sometimes as the director of IT at Mar-a-Lago. Sometimes he's referred to as Trump employee number 4. That's his designation in the indictment. And here is just a snippet of what Jack Smith put in his court filing about this potential problem, this potential conflict with Woodward representing witnesses who could potentially incriminate one another and incriminate Donald Trump. The investigation, that being the grand jury's criminal investigation into Donald Trump's documents, crimes, and obstruction of justice, the investigation gathered evidence that Trump and Walt Nauta endeavored to obstruct the investigation by the grand jury sitting in the District of Columbia. Trump employee Carlos de Oliveira, now a charged co-defendant, tried to enlist the Director of Information Technology for Mar-a-Lago, identified in the superseding indictment as Trump employee 4, Mr. Taveras, to delete Mar-a-Lago security footage after the grand jury in D.C. had issued a subpoena for the footage. The government, that is the prosecutors, informed Mr. Woodward that his concurrent representation of Trump employee number 4, that would be Taveras, and defendant Nauta raised a potential conflict of interest. And Mr. Woodward responded that he did not have reason to believe that his concurrent representation of Taveras and Nauta raised a conflict of interest. So what happens next, friends? This lawyer, Mr. Woodward, lets one of his clients, Mr. Taveras, go into the grand jury, be placed under oath, and lie. And tell lies that end up protecting Woodward's other client, Walt Nauta, and protecting Donald Trump. Think about it. This lawyer is being paid with Trump PAC money, and he lets one of his clients go in and lie, and those lies have the effect of protecting Woodward's other client? You know, we have a term for this. It's called conflict of interest for dummies. So, what happened next? Well, not surprisingly, Jack Smith was not just going to accept Mr. Taveras' lies to the grand jury. So he again says to his attorney, Woodward, "You have a conflict, sport." He probably didn't say sport. But you have a conflict. You can't sacrifice one of your clients to protect another one of your clients, or to protect Donald Trump for that matter. And apparently, Woodward's position was, oh no, just watch me. So what did Jack Smith do? He did something that I did a number of times when I was a federal prosecutor. He filed a motion with the chief judge in federal court in Washington, D.C., who has supervisory responsibility over the grand jury in D.C., Chief Judge Boasberg, to have competent, conflict-free counsel appointed to represent and advise Mr. Taveras, to look out for Mr. Taveras' interests, not Walt Nauta's and not Donald Trump's. And what happened then? Let's go back to Jack Smith's court filing. Chief Judge Boasberg made available independent counsel, the first assistant in the Federal Public Defender's Office for the District of Columbia, to provide advice to Trump employee 4, Mr. Taveras, regarding potential conflicts. On July 5, 2023, Mr. Taveras informed Chief Judge Boasberg that he no longer wished to be represented by Mr. Woodward, and that, going forward, he wished to be represented by the first assistant federal defender. And here's the important part, friends. Immediately after receiving new counsel, conflict-free counsel, counsel not paid for by MAGA world, counsel who had Mr. Taveras' interests at heart, not Walt Nauta's, not Donald Trump's. Immediately after receiving new counsel, Mr. Taveras, Trump employee 4, retracted his prior false testimony and provided information that implicated Nauta, de Oliveira, and Trump in efforts to delete security camera footage as set forth in the superseding indictment. And there you have it, friends. You get a conflict-free attorney, not one being paid for by Trump World or Trump PACs, and you start singing like a bird. You start telling the truth about the crimes of Carlos de Oliveira, Walt Nauta, and Donald Trump. You know, friends, God bless the Sixth Amendment's guarantee of a right to counsel. And not just a right to any old counsel, a right to zealous, conflict-free counsel. Trump world is falling apart. It's disintegrating. And we are moving toward accountability and justice. And yes, justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.